for inviting us today. Uh, we wanted to show a really cool overhead view of Mass Street, and we certainly know the importance of Mass Street in the Lawrence community. Go ahead, Jay. So what we are prepared to visit about today are some cool projects that we've had a chance to work on. Remote working abroad, an experience that Jay had recently, and digital delivery and kind of what's all involved with that. And then certainly have a chance for discussion and any questions you might have. So WSP is a international firm. Um, our It's based out of Canada, actually. However, our U.S. presence is out of New York City, and so nationally we have, globally we have almost 50,000 employees, around just under 10,000 in the U.S. And then where we are in the central part of the U.S. is within what we call our central region. We have a little under 600 employees in our central region, and our area, which Agnes is our area manager, we've got around just under 100 employees, and then somewhere in the 60 to 70 employee range in our Kansas City, Missouri office. So we do a lot of work for local clients, but the neat thing is we have resources that we can reach out to folks nationally or internationally, and we have experts in all types of things. So and really Jay and I both work in traffic engineering and kind of transportation planning, and we really one of the things that we specialize in is connected autonomous vehicle research, but also integration. There's been research that's been done for years in Michigan. We've worked with the auto companies and the universities, and developing test beds and whatnot for connected and autonomous vehicles. And we do a lot of planning work, but also the integration work for like test projects and things like that. So trying to get that started here in the Midwest. One of the things that we do, Jay and I both, as part of a program that KDOT has, the Kansas Department of Transportation, are performing what are called Traffic Engineering Assistance Program studies. And these are studies that we do in communities that really don't have the resources or access to a traffic engineer. And so we do these all over the state, and it can be all the way from reviewing an intersection to see if signal warrants are met, or reviewing crashes on a corridor to see what we might recommend as part of improvements for that corridor, or even something that Jay's been directly involved with was looking at an outdated interchange in Hutchison, and actually recommending removing some bridges and removing the interchange and building a roundabout along with a complete street along, I think it was A Street, Jay? Yeah, yep. So we do studies like this all over Kansas, and it's pretty exciting because it's kind of on that really planning level, making recommendations. But then what's exciting is that a lot of the things that we've recommended, communities are deciding to try and implement. So they may go to the next step, which is focused on improvements that are focused on active transportation. We have some shots here of public meetings and client public engagement, where we sit down and have, let's say, a design workshop or a design charrette, where we get the public involved and get them to come up with cool ideas on, what they want in their community. And I think one of the photos there in the bottom right is that Armour Road in North Kansas City, Jay?
Yep, that's Armour Road.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom left is a rendering of that, and the bottom right is the actual thing once it was built.
Yep, there you go. And Nikki, did you have a chance to work on Armour Road? I'm trying to remember when you were working with us. No?
Did I, Jay? I mean,
I think you might been in between that one where maybe the planning project had already been finished, and then by the time we got to design, you were back at KU again. So I think you might have just missed that one.
probably, yeah.
But it's neat to be involved in projects like that because in pretty short time frame, you can go from a study to actual improvements on the ground. Something that you all might be interested in, we're just finishing up a study. Well, we finished up the study, but came up with a concept of a folded diamond interchange at K10 and Wakarusa there in Lawrence on the west side on the South Lawrence Traffic Way. And this concept was actually developed after we worked with KDOT and the FHWA, the City of Lawrence and Douglas County, on a study that looked at some immediate improvements that could be made to the signalized intersection with 27th Street, and then some longer term improvements at this location to go with an interchange instead of a signalized intersection. So the study recommended some immediate improvements that we could make. And if you've been on K10, you've probably driven through the construction going on right now. I think they're just a few weeks away from finishing up the improvements that have been made as part of that project. But this folded diamond interchange actually was selected by KDOT just a few weeks ago as kind of their preferred alternative to go through the environmental process that's currently going on along K10, the whole project, for the public to review and provide their feedback. And then KDOT, if it's favorable, KDOT would like to move forward with developing final plans for this configuration that could be funded in the future. All right, so not only do we get to work on cool local projects like that, but a lot of projects across the country. So a few projects that I worked on include the Horseshoe down in Dallas, which was I-35 and I-35E, really big design build project. And I know Jay worked on a design build up in Tacoma, Washington on Interstate 5. Right now we're working with Bartlett and West on the reconfiguration and reconstruction of I-70 through downtown Topeka, called the I-70 Polk Quincy Viaduct, and just made some changes to the concept of that corridor just recently, and working with KDOT to start moving forward with updating the right-of-way plan so KDOT can start acquiring right-of-way along that corridor. They plan to fund that improvement in Topeka, and it would be the west project from around 6th Street all the way west to McVicker for construction starting in the spring of 2025. So we have a few years of design left on that project. Okay. We've really been focused, I'd say, over the last 10 years on utilizing innovative interchanges and intersections. So, down in Springfield, Missouri, was one of the first locations in the U.S. where they designed a diverging diamond interchange, and it worked so well. And the FHWA did a lot of study down there that it's something they've really been promoting. And if you see a lot of the new interchanges that are constructed or reconstructed are going with a diverging diamond versus a traditional diamond, just because they're, number one, they're safer, and number two, they're much more efficient. So you can see these different innovative intersection types, like a reduced conflict intersection in the upper right. We did a study on K7, which looked at kind of from I-70 up to the city of Lansing, that looked at that corridor and recommended installing arc cuts along that corridor to improve safety and traffic operations. And right now, there's the first signalized arc cut is being designed at K7 and parallel, which really resulted from our study. Also, the use of roundabouts. And, roundabouts aren't, they've been around a while. The first ones in Kansas were in the mid 1990s. However, utilizing roundabouts and access management can really be powerful way to improve safety, improve traffic operations. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but we designed a project in Hays, Kansas, on Vine Street, which is their main commercial corridor in Hays, and it's really going to improve safety and traffic operations along that corridor. And Jay, you might want to talk about this, just some of the really cool things that, you've been involved with complete streets and other things.
Yeah, we've been really, in our group, David's shown some of the big highway projects and other things we do, but we also focus a lot on complete streets, the idea of complete streets, and how we can look at our streets and our public realm as an asset to the community, not just for moving cars, but also how does that affect the movement of other modes of transportation, transit, pedestrians, bicyclists, but also other things like, a sense of place, of feeling of community, economic development, beautification, and then also, as always, safety. We do just so much. There really isn't a project that we do that isn't a safety project, and really Vision Zero is, our one of our passions, and looking beyond just traditional safety, but specifically at the fatal and serious injury crashes, and how we can work to eliminate those crashes. And complete streets are just a great example of that. That bottom left is at Armour Road again, and this was constructed about a little over a year ago now. We did a follow-up study and found that during COVID time, we reduced the injury crashes by 25% on that corridor, where at the same time the fatal crashes in Missouri went up by 12%. So we saw a reduction where the rest of the state was seeing an increase. And other alternate type projects, alternate delivery projects. The top right is the I-49 corridor in Grandview that we're working on now, that we're the program manager on that. So we're not, it's a little different. We're not, taking a concept and designing it and putting it out to bid. We're actually helped to develop the concept, but now we're actively procuring a design build team. And so they come up with different concepts, different ideas. Maybe this intersection in this concept design was a traffic signal, but maybe the design builder proposes it as a roundabout, and they say they can build it cheaper, faster, or maybe it's more expensive, but it operates better and it's safer, and so all those scoring criteria go into that. So it's kind of interesting being on the other side, almost acting like part of the public agency rather than on the consulting side. And David, I'll let you talk about Vine Street again. You mentioned we
Yeah,
talk a little bit more
there we
about
go.
it.
Sure. So this is Vine Street in Hayes, and if you've never been to Hayes, it's pretty much the key commercial corridor through the city of Hayes. It's also US 183. So actually, KDOT routes a lot of oversized loads on 183, like wind blades and wind tower sections and things like that. Um, but anyway, this project started with just a single intersection traffic study that we did for the city of Hayes on at 37th and Vine. They had a hotel that had basically been vacated. It was being ready to be torn down, and they were looking to redevelop that property on the west side of Vine Street. And so we started looking at things, and as we dug into the study, we realized that, well, really this intersection affects the one to the north, and they've had problems with intersections to the south. And so it went from a single intersection all the way to a corridor, from 32nd Street on the south to 41st on the north, including the interchange with I-70. And so after we did the study, we felt like, this would be a really good project to apply for federal funding through a federal program. So we worked with the city to develop what's called a build grant application, and build is a federal program that helps build projects for communities. And thankfully, this project was awarded like $6.1 million by the FHWA for construction. And so the city was able to fund the rest of the project. KDOT doesn't have any money in this project, but they basically were the agency that was, overseeing the design and construction. So the city hired us to move forward with design of this corridor. It's currently under construction. They're wrapping up season 1. And you can see Jay just included some aerial shots of some of the construction going on right now. So it's neat that within just a couple years, we've gone from a study to helping the community get money to build it, to design, and now to construction. And this should be finished up at the end of season 2, which will be the end of 2021.
All right. So I want to take over now and talk for a little while. And I think Nikki was interested in hearing about what it's like to work for WSP or for a mega company. And so I thought I would give a little background on my career journey so far, and then this kind of exciting opportunity I was able to do last year, which seems like another lifetime at this point. But go through that, and then some of the kind of exciting digital delivery things that we're doing at WSP. So I started after I graduated from college at a small firm, a local firm in Kansas City called Luchin. It has since been acquired by Olson, but I was there for 8 years while it was still Luchin. And we had about 50 people, I think maybe upwards of 60 people at the peak of the size of that company. So from 50 people at Luchin to 50,000 people at WSP. But I think a lot of people have a lot of concern coming out of college. I don't know why. I don't honestly even know what this term means, but pigeonholed. Everybody's talking about getting pigeonholed, like stuck. If you go to a large firm, getting stuck doing one thing for your entire career, that you don't really have the opportunity to have a broad base of experience. So I started a small firm. I had just a fantastic experience there. I would never discourage anyone from working in a small firm because you do get such a broad experience. I spent time out in the field with survey crews. I did drafting. I did traffic studies and design and project management and just about anything you could imagine there. And also from stormwater, sanitary sewer, earthwork, grading, street design, when you're at a small firm, you kind of have to do everything, whatever project comes up, you're working on it. So, but I kind of, after several years, I was getting more interested in becoming more specialized in traffic engineering and safety work, roundabouts, complete streets. And when you're at a smaller firm, you kind of get the projects that you get, and it's tough to get into very specialized fields because, traffic is only a small part of every project. And, if your company's working on 10 projects a year, you have 10 small traffic studies a year, and you can't necessarily support a full-time employee just getting specialized with that. So about 5 years ago, I came over to WSP because I had the opportunity to work with David and do more focused traffic engineering, safety work. And again, I was still kind of concerned, am I just going to be another number in the system? But once I got here, just found that the possibilities are really limitless with a big company. The ability to grow into doing new things, innovative things, different market sectors, different geographic locations. I just about didn't work on a single project outside the Kansas City metro till I came here. And so, and I think that, that last bullet is the most important when you're looking for a job, looking for a company. It doesn't matter if you're at a big firm, a mega firm, a small regional firm, a tiny local firm. It all depends on your supervisor and the company culture. Because if you don't, you can be at a small firm and have a bad supervisor, or a mega firm and have a bad supervisor and have a really bad experience, and vice versa. It depends so much on who your direct supervisor is, and then the culture. Is the company doing the kinds of things you're interested in? Are they, do they have the same values as you? Because if they don't, you're not going to be happy there. And if they do, you are. And it really doesn't matter if you're at a small or big firm. So I've obviously been on with WSP for 5 years, have no plans of going anywhere else anytime soon because the culture is great. My supervisor is great. He happens to be on the phone. I'm not saying that just because he's on the phone, but and then that ability to kind of get outside the comfort zone, get outside your local area, and see a bit more of the world. I know, obviously, lots of you on the call have seen more of the world than I ever have. Nikki included is more experience, broad experience than I have, even with some of these experiences. But just kind of an example of what, the kind of experiences you could have at a firm like WSP is about a year ago now, I had the opportunity to go work in our Munich office for about 3 months, and wasn't working on projects over there, just had a thought. We had some people coming through our office, and some people would come for a week or two, and if they had family in Kansas City or had something to do here, you just plug in at the Kansas City office and work. And I thought, boy, if we can do that in the US, maybe I can just do that anywhere. And so talked to all the David, to Agnes, to other HR people, and they said, yeah, I guess if they have a seat for you in Munich, I suppose you can go work there if you want. And so packed up the family, went to Munich, went to Hofbräuhaus first off, Marienplatz, the beer garden, of course. Had to do all the important sites first before actually getting over to the office. And this is kind of a test, I guess. One of these offices is in Kansas City, one of these offices is in Munich, Germany, and one of them is in Varberg, Sweden. And I bet you might be hard pressed to just figure out which is which. And this is one of the things I found, that we're so similar across the world in the way we operate in this industry. Everything is so globalized, and especially within one firm. Across different firms things look different, but at WSP, going anywhere in the world is pretty much like being at home. So that top left is our Kansas City office, the bottom left is Varberg, Sweden, and then on the right is Munich. And everywhere I went, we begrudgingly talk about IT a lot, but boy, it was pretty amazing. I just took my laptop, any office I went to, plugged into the Ethernet cable, or even just got on the Wi-Fi and could pull up my desktop drives just like I was sitting in Kansas City. So they do. We can't complain about them all the time, just some of the time. But we have a really fantastic global IT infrastructure to do that. And now, really, as you all know, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We don't even have to be in an office anymore. So, and with especially new tools like OneDrive and other online cloud storage solutions, it kind of is irrelevant being in the office or not. So there's a lot of similarities in how we worked, people I worked with. Everyone over there had similar challenges, similar issues, similar excitement about projects, but there were a lot of differences too. The coffee machines were much better in Europe. That one on the right was a $15,000 fully automatic coffee machine in Munich. Our coffee machine, I think, is like $150 Keurig here. So the expectations of overhead charges are a little different. Also in the Varberg office in Sweden, they had a plated breakfast every morning for all the employees at 9 a.m. Everyone got up from their desk and ate together, and had a really great office culture around that. Plus, we might have some of our office loaner cars. Well, they have loaner bikes in Sweden. So the bottom left was one of a couple loaner bikes in the Varberg office. But across the world, the Munich office was really interesting. Much like your group here, it was so international. I almost couldn't believe it. We had people from India, Africa, Spain, all over Europe. There was some from Romania, Poland, Sweden, the UK. I think we, at some point, were thinking about it, and not a single person in the Munich office had actually grown up in Munich. And there was, I think, only about a third of the office was native-born German. So very international group, but just the same as the globalization is everywhere, is the same across the company. At that time, a lot of these icons were just totally unknown to us and new things. And it was kind of a challenge going over there, trying to continue to work on projects in the US, continue to communicate. But now, this slide's just about irrelevant anymore. This is like our daily existence. It's like, is our next call on Zoom or on Teams or whatever. So it's definitely, the barrier is much lower now to doing something like this than it was before. I think everybody's more used to it. And I did want to point out, this is just kind of funny. Our cell phones work just about anywhere. Almost everybody's smartphone will work anywhere in the world now, but we did find that they were really expensive to use for multiple months. So we found that Aldi is one of the biggest cell phone providers in Germany. So we went down to the Aldi, bought our SIM cards, the Aldi Talk SIM cards, and it was $12 a month for, I think, 10 gigs of data per phone, which is about a quarter of what we pay now, I think. So kind of differences, but this communication is, the barriers are so much lower now to doing things like this. I think some of my biggest takeaways of doing this, it was interesting meeting our staff, getting to know them, making those connections, but also just seeing the way mobility is viewed differently in Europe, in Germany, and in Scandinavia. Bicycles were just, everywhere. The cities are so much more dense, and I was kind of floored. I obviously knew that everyone biked there. I'd lived in Germany before, but when I was there, living there 10 years ago or so, the range of different types of bikes definitely didn't exist. And you've got everything from your old clunker bikes to fancy cargo bikes, and the post office. Most of the postal deliveries that I saw in Munich were done on bike, and they were all e-bikes because they're hauling 50 to 100 pounds of stuff. So there's no way they could really carry that around, on their own, unless they're fitness experts. But my personal favorite was that e-bike in the bottom right that had a front rack that was perfectly sized to carry one case of German beer. So somebody put some real thought into that one. And beyond just bicycles, the street construction, the way that that concept of the public realm, complete streets, and viewing the streets as an asset to the community. Some streets just being completely car free, and being for bicycles, pedestrians only, and then this idea of shared use zones. The top right is pretty common in shopping areas there, where it's really a pedestrian free-for-all or a bicycle free-for-all, but cars are allowed in there, but really the car has to yield to everyone. And so the street design is radically different from what we see here. It's not segregated, curb and gutter and pavement and then everything outside of that is for pedestrians, cyclists. Everything inside that's for cars. It's really a mixing zone. And because the drivers are required to yield, they're always very cautious and going about 5 miles per hour. It's kind of like just driving in the big Walmart parking lot up by the door. You never know when a pedestrian is going to shoot out in front of you. So you don't really drive more than 5 or 6 miles an hour. And you might even be driving slower than that. So it's really it seems very unsafe from our perspective, but that different perspective on mobility, it actually is very safe. And then there's just every kind of mobility you could imagine. I mean, shared mobility, the scooters that we have here, their scooters all have shocks, full suspensions, and they're still really uncomfortable because you're riding over cobblestones. And when the cobblestones are wet, they're pretty slick, which I found out one night as I was crashing on one of the scooters, my one and only scooter crash over there. But the top right, where it was a crowdsourcing, crowdfunding effort, and they were electric scooters that were a shared scooter, and they did like a GoFundMe kind of thing and got the money to buy all these scooters and put them out. Of course, it was the same questions in the news that we have here of, oh, what happens if someone crashes? What's the insurance? What's the liability? And oh, these scooters are popping up everywhere on our sidewalks. What are we going to do with them? We have to do something about this. It's just the exact same conversation around the, I guess the mopeds that they have around the scooters. But the concept of mobility is so much less binary there. Here we talk about cars and everything else, and there was a sliding scale of, I don't even know what that thing in the middle is. Is that a car? Is that kind of like a motorcycle? Is it sort of a golf cart? It's really very different way to think about it than we do here. You also, get some exciting international experiences. I got to have a nice chat with this police officer as he pulled me over on his motorcycle while I was riding in the bike lane. I learned a valuable lesson that if you are on a bicycle and you don't comply with a pedestrian signal, then apparently that's illegal. Whereas here, something like a hawk signal or a hybrid beacon, where you can cross the street. It wasn't at an actual traffic signal. It was a kind of a side street where there was a beacon that you could push the button if you wanted the red light to come up for the cars. But apparently you were required to push the button. I was very confused why somebody was riding a motorcycle in the bike lane, and they started shouting at me through his megaphone. And I thought, this is weird. What's going on here? Maybe he's trying to respond to a bike crash up ahead of me. And so I pulled over and he pulled over too. And I thought, what's going on here? But I found out, but I also found out there's a statute of limitations on these tickets, because I kept trying to get in touch with the police department over there to figure out how I could actually pay it since I'd come back to the US. And eventually they said, oh, don't worry about it. The statute of limitations is over. You don't have to pay the ticket anymore. So 2 valuable lessons there. And of course, that company culture, Munich, we were there for Oktoberfest, just, a total coincidence. We didn't plan to be there during Oktoberfest or anything, but or maybe we did. So I had a lot of fun with the members of that's our WSP group there. Some of the members that we went out together for a lunch and a few adult beverages at Oktoberfest as an office group. So I mentioned, all those communication things. It's so much easier to communicate now. And I have found one upside, if there is a positive side from the COVID-19 pandemic, is that I feel like we're able to collaborate a lot easier across different offices. Before, it was always, we have a team in our office. We might have 1 or 2 remote people, and then you have a meeting in a conference room, and the one remote person's on the phone, and they can't really hear what's going on. And it's difficult to include them on everything when you have a core group in one office and then 1 or 2 people outside the office. Well, now nobody's in the office, and so it becomes really easy to collaborate. And at a big company like WSP, bringing in people from all over. We recently won a big safety project out in California that we had people from one of our Vision Zero experts from Sweden on there. We had folks from Michigan, Florida, Texas, California, and then of course our local office. I'm managing the project, and it's just it's just the same as working with people from Kansas City anymore. Working with people from all over. I've also gotten involved. It's kind of it is what you make of it at a big company, and I've been able to get involved with a lot of these different global initiatives, and David has as well, and working on projects all over the place. So the other part of that thing, the side, is this digital delivery concept, and these are kinds of things that I would read about when I was working at a small company and think, boy, that's cool. I'll never get to work on that. And now being at WSP, and we're able to actually leverage these technologies and have the specialists to work on these. And the concept of digital delivery is that, we used to, even before computers, hand draw plans, and we have a set of plans, and we'd get those contractors, and they would look at them, they'd take out their scale, and they'd scale it off and build it. And until recently, that's still what we've been doing. We've just been doing it with computers. So we design the project, we create a set of PDFs, and then we email the PDFs over. That's the only difference, is a PDF and not a paper plan set. But the digital delivery idea is that we're actually, to create these PDF or paper plans, we're making 3D models already in CAD. And digital delivery is simply utilizing those 3D models and that modeling as a way to build it, rather than making paper plans. And there's a lot of benefits to this. There's also a lot of challenges. When you make a set of paper plans, if your model doesn't quite line up right and it doesn't triangulate perfectly, you can kind of smooth that out, and you can get it to look right and work right, and you can get the numbers right, even if your 3D model isn't perfect. Well, when you're doing digital delivery, your 3D model has to be perfect, because that's what they're going to use to actually build the thing. But there's a lot of opportunities with efficiencies, and with greater project controls, better quality control. And a lot of this digital delivery is kind of based on this idea of a digital twin. And if you've never heard the term digital twin, you can even think of it like Google Earth is a very rudimentary digital twin of the world, especially when you look at the LiDAR of it. You zoom in on the LiDAR on Google Earth, and it looks like buildings, and it looks like trees, and it looks like little cars, and that's essentially a digital twin. It's a virtual reality version of the world. But the digital twins we're doing are not just LiDAR, surface, they're everything. They're all the utilities, above ground, underground. They're even incorporate elements of time if you're looking at a project scheduling. So we have these digital twin models that are everything. And so when we design a bridge, you can very quickly determine, we place these bridge piers here. Well, there's a gas line under here, but maybe we can move that gas line, but then there's all these other utilities here. And, recently we had an example where we had told a contractor there was a gas line, and probably was live, and said, watch out. Of course, they hit the gas line, gas started coming out, and they were able to pretty quickly go and get that gas shut off. And, some of these complex systems, like on airports, downtown areas where it's difficult to even know what utilities are there, let alone whose utility it is and where there's a shutoff valve. Having a digital twin for something like gas, a gas line rupture, being able to very quickly identify where's the valve for that gas line. Are there other assets in the area? Are there other issues? Is that gas line near an underground electric line or something like that could cause it to explode? Those are the kinds of things that this digital twin does really well to bring everything together. You can also do really cool stuff with it, that once you have a digital twin for a highway project, for example, you can put it in a driving simulation and go out and drive it. So the client can drive it, you can drive it. A lot of things for highway signing, it's really applicable. And that user experience. How does it actually feel? You know, it might look good on paper, but it might not feel right, or it might not look right once you actually get out there looking at it from a human perspective. That kind of asset management, the 4D workflow element to it, and the time element is important as well. The high-speed rail 2 model in the UK is really a mega project for us, and they have a full digital twin model for that, looking at all the scheduling and all the elements of that project. So as I mentioned, you know, it reduces this digital delivery can really help improve quality. It can help reduce schedule time, and really importantly helps to make your estimating much more accurate. And so once it actually goes to construct, you know, the work we do is we usually use a rule of thumb, about 10% of the project cost is our cost, and the other 90% is building it. So if we can make it more accurate on our end, we can potentially save a ton of money and a ton of time on the back end. Also, the digital twins are getting better with traffic modeling. When you look at some of these models, this is actually the Linwood corridor in Kansas City that we did a corridor planning project for. You can meld the digital twin with the traffic modeling actually as well, so you can kind of see how that traffic looks. And you know, for things like queuing, if the public's interested, you know, maybe somebody has a business somewhere in there, it's hard to explain to someone that the queue is 380 feet long and have them actually understand, oh, well, that means the queue is going to be in front of my front door all the time. So having to show that traffic flow in the real world is really valuable for stakeholders. And then I wanted to show one other thing before, I know we're getting close to time, but I just have to show this. This is just too cool. This is one of our things that our visualization group has done. We're actually using the Unreal, the video game Unreal back in the, I think, early 2000s, had an open source 3D modeling environment, and they're using that now to model these projects in that 4D realm, where this is the old bridge, the old rail bridge, and then this is actually, you know, just a total virtual reality. You can kind of fly around and just like you're in a video game, but it's actually showing the engineering design and how it's going to be put up over time. So the different aspects, the project scheduling, and you can even see the way they're building it in the channel, the different elements there, and how the project is going to progress. And that's really a huge advancement with these digital deliveries, is that element of time. These complex projects, it's really difficult to figure out, you know, when we build this thing, we have to have certain elements in place to build one part of it, and do those elements, not actually the design, but the kind of interim design elements, are they going to conflict with other parts of the project? So, you know, is the cofferdam going to actually be underneath some other part where we need to be building? So that scheduling is a huge part of this digital delivery. All right, I'll pass it back to David to wrap it up.
All right, thanks, Jay.